Welcome to History Before Bed. Tonight's bedtime story is on the journey of Sun Wukong. We hope to lull you to sleep as you relax and imagine pieces of history. Good night. Chapter 1. The Birth of the Monkey King. In the quiet cradle of Flower Fruit Mountain, where mist rolled off the peaks and the air was thick with the scent of wildflowers, a strange event unfolded. Deep within the mountain, among rocks worn smooth by the passage of time, a single stone stood taller than the rest. It was unlike the others, gleaming with a faint light even in the darkest hours of night. For centuries, this stone absorbed the energy of the heavens and the earth, the sun and the moon, until one day it finally cracked open. From within, a small figure sprang forth, a monkey, fully formed and full of life. The other monkeys on the mountain had never seen anything like it. They gathered around, curious and amazed, as the newborn creature blinked and looked around. He had golden eyes that sparkled like the sun reflecting off the river, and his body, though small, was strong and nimble. The monkeys took him in as one of their own, and he grew quickly, outpacing the others in strength, agility, and cleverness. In no time, he became their leader, not by force, but by the sheer magnetism of his personality. The monkeys loved him for his bravery, and they marveled at his wit. They called him Sun Wukong, the Monkey King. Life on Flower Fruit Mountain was idyllic for Sun Wukong. He led his tribe in joyous games, swinging through the trees, leaping from cliff to cliff, and bathing in the cool waters of the mountain's streams. He was quick to solve problems, often finding ingenious ways to outsmart predators or obtain food. His world, though small, seemed perfect to the other monkeys, but not to Sun Wukong. He was always curious about what lay beyond the mist-covered peaks and the vast horizon. He often sat alone, watching the sun sink below the distant mountains, wondering what secrets the world held. One day, while playing with the other monkeys, Sun Wukong noticed an elderly monkey sitting by the waterfall, staring thoughtfully into the water. The old one spoke softly, almost as if to himself, but Sun Wukong listened closely. "Do you see the waterfall, Wukong? It has flowed for longer than any of us have lived. It never stops, and it never ages." The idea of never aging struck Sun Wukong like a thunderbolt. Could it be that there was a way to live forever, like the eternal waterfall? That night, while the other monkeys slept under the stars, he lay awake, his mind racing. He realized that no matter how happy he was on Flower Fruit Mountain, he could not stay there forever. He had to seek out the secret of immortality. The next morning, without saying goodbye, Sun Wukong set out on his journey. He knew nothing of the world beyond the mountain, but he was determined. He wandered for days through forests and over rivers until he encountered his first celestial being, a mysterious figure dressed in flowing robes whose feet never seemed to touch the ground. The celestial being smiled at the young monkey and said, "You seek immortality, do you not?" Sun Wukong, though surprised that the stranger knew his thoughts, nodded eagerly. "Then you must go beyond the realm of mortals. The path is long and full of trials, but if your heart is true, you will find what you seek," the celestial being said before vanishing into thin air. With renewed determination, Sun Wukong continued his travels. His feet carried him far, into places few had ever seen. He sought out sages and immortals, masters of ancient wisdom who lived in secluded caves and hidden valleys. They tested him with riddles and taught him the ways of the world, how the elements moved, how life flowed, and how the heavens rotated. Sun Wukong absorbed every lesson with the voraciousness of someone who had an endless thirst for knowledge. He learned to meditate, to control his breath, and to harness the natural energies around him. Yet, even as he learned from these wise teachers, none could give him the one answer he sought above all: how to live forever. But Sun Wukong was not disheartened. He realized that the secret would not be given to him easily. He would have to push further, challenge the very boundaries of heaven and earth, and discover it for himself. With his newfound knowledge, Sun Wukong felt stronger and more powerful than ever before. His spirit, however, remained restless. He knew that this was only the beginning of his journey, and that immortality, the one thing he desired most, was still out of reach. But deep within his heart, he knew that no force, celestial or otherwise, could stand in his way for long. The world was vast, and so was his ambition. The Monkey King would not rest until he had unlocked the secret of eternal life. And so he set his gaze to the horizon once more, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Chapter 2: The Journey to Immortality. Sun Wukong's journey took him far from the familiar comfort of Flower Fruit Mountain, deep into lands unknown, until he came upon a secluded mountain where the famed Taoist master Subhuti resided. The air there was thick with an ancient stillness, and the towering peaks seemed to guard secrets untold. Wukong, ever persistent, climbed the winding paths that led to Subhuti's cave, his heart set on learning the mysteries that could grant him immortality. When Sun Wukong first arrived, Subhuti sat cross-legged beneath an ancient cypress tree, his long white beard flowing like a river of time. Without speaking, Subhuti gazed at the Monkey King for what felt like hours. His piercing eyes seemed to see into the very core of Wukong's being, past his fur, his form, his mischief, to the soul beneath. Finally, the old master nodded, recognizing the monkey's potential. Under Subhuti's guidance, Wukong began his training. The first lessons were quiet and inward, focused on meditation and the inner workings of the Tao. Sun Wukong, though restless by nature, forced himself to sit still for hours at a time, learning to calm his mind and focus his energy. He practiced breathing techniques that connected him to the essence of the universe, allowing him to feel the flow of life around him. He learned to control his qi, mastering the subtle forces of existence that flowed through all things. Over the years, Sun Wukong's training became more rigorous. Subhuti taught him powerful martial arts, techniques that allowed him to move faster than the wind, to strike with the force of a mountain, and to leap into the sky with the grace of a bird. But even more remarkable were the lessons in shape-shifting. Subhuti revealed the secrets of the 72 transformations, an ancient art that allowed Wukong to change his form at will. He could become anything: a tree, a bird, a fish, even another person. No prison could hold him, and no barrier could stop him. He was like the wind, impossible to pin down, always shifting. Yet, despite his progress, Sun Wukong's mischievous spirit never left him. While he excelled in the rigorous disciplines of Subhuti's teachings, his playful nature often disrupted the tranquility of the master's mountain. He would transform into different animals, play pranks on the other students, and disappear for days on end, only to return laughing at his own antics. His power grew, but so did his arrogance. One day, unable to resist showing off his new abilities, Sun Wukong transformed into a perfect copy of Subhuti himself, mimicking the old master's voice and mannerisms. He strutted around the courtyard, barking orders to the other students and relishing their confused expressions. Subhuti, observing this from a distance, was not amused. When Wukong finally revealed the prank, laughing at his cleverness, Subhuti's face darkened. "You may have great power, but you lack the wisdom to use it properly," Subhuti said, his voice as calm as ever, but with a dangerous edge. "I have taught you all I can, but your arrogance blinds you. Leave this place and do not speak of me as your master." Sun Wukong, though saddened by his dismissal, did not argue. He bowed deeply to Subhuti, a rare moment of humility flickering across his face. Then, without looking back, he left the mountain. Free from his master's discipline, Sun Wukong's confidence swelled. Armed with the knowledge of the Tao, martial arts, and the 72 transformations, he felt invincible. He roamed the world once more, seeking greater challenges and treasures. His exploits soon became the stuff of legend, but it wasn't enough. He desired a weapon fit for a king. It was then that Wukong heard of the Dragon King of the Eastern Seas, who kept many treasures hidden in his underwater palace. Without hesitation, Wukong plunged into the sea, swimming deeper and deeper until he arrived at the glittering gates of the Dragon King's domain. The palace was a marvel, its walls encrusted with pearls and its halls glowing with the light of countless undersea jewels. The Dragon King, a magnificent serpent-like figure with scales that shimmered like rain on a lake, received Wukong with cautious courtesy. "I have come for a weapon," Wukong declared boldly, "one worthy of a king." The Dragon King hesitated. Many weapons filled his armories, but he doubted any could satisfy the restless monkey before him. Yet, after presenting several legendary swords, spears, and axes, all of which Wukong found too light, too dull, or too cumbersome, the Dragon King remembered an ancient relic hidden deep in the treasury. It was a staff, the Rui Jingu Bang, said to have once supported the pillars of the heavens themselves. It was a heavy iron rod, etched with golden inscriptions, and though it appeared massive, it could change its size at will. To most, it was immovable. But when Wukong wrapped his hands around it, the staff responded, shrinking to the size of a walking stick, light as a feather in his grasp. Sun Wukong grinned, spinning the staff through the air with ease. It was perfect. The Dragon King watched in disbelief as the Monkey King swung the Rui Jingu Bang as though it were a mere toy, its weight no burden at all. With the staff in hand, Sun Wukong left the Dragon King's palace, laughing in triumph. He returned to the world above, where tales of his strength, his immortality, and his new weapon spread quickly. He challenged all who crossed his path, demons, bandits, and even celestial beings, and defeated them with ease. He grew reckless, his mischief turning to outright defiance of the natural order. Before long, Wukong's unruly behavior reached the ears of the Jade Emperor, ruler of the heavens. The celestial deities, already wary of the Monkey King's growing power, began to plot ways to contain him. But Sun Wukong, with his magical staff, his immortality, and his shape-shifting abilities, was no longer a mere monkey. He was a force unto himself, and not even the heavens would stop him without a fight. Chapter 3. Rebellion Against Heaven. Sun Wukong's triumphs over demons, dragons, and celestial beings filled him with a dangerous pride. As word of his exploits spread, the world began to speak of him with awe and fear. No creature, mortal or immortal, seemed able to stand against him. His name echoed across the land, and yet it wasn't enough for the Monkey King. He wanted more than renown. He craved recognition from heaven itself. It was in a moment of unchecked arrogance that Wukong declared himself the great sage, equal to heaven. He fashioned a golden banner and planted it at the peak of Flower Fruit Mountain, proclaiming his title for all to see. His ambition knew no bounds. Wukong was not content with being a king among monkeys. He believed himself worthy of standing alongside the gods. This declaration reached the Jade Emperor, ruler of heaven, whose celestial palace resided high above in the clouds. To the emperor and his court, Sun Wukong's claim was a grievous insult, an affront to the very order of the cosmos. The Jade Emperor at first dismissed the Monkey King as nothing more than a boastful troublemaker. But when reports of Wukong's growing power and defiance increased, the emperor sent heavenly troops to deal with the upstart. Armies of celestial soldiers descended from the heavens, shimmering in their golden armor, weapons gleaming like the sun itself. But Wukong, wielding his magical staff, the Rui Jingu Bang, fought them off with ease. The celestial armies were no match for the Monkey King's strength, speed, and clever transformations. Each wave of soldiers fell back, defeated, leaving the heavens humiliated. Undeterred by these initial setbacks, the Jade Emperor devised a new plan. Rather than confronting Wukong directly, he sought to appease him, offering the Monkey King a position in the heavenly court. The idea was to flatter Wukong's ego and contain his mischief within the bounds of the celestial order. Wukong, intrigued by the thought of gaining a foothold in the heavens, accepted the offer. He was granted a lowly title, Keeper of the Heavenly Stables, a position meant to occupy him with menial tasks and keep him out of trouble. But the heavens had misjudged Sun Wukong's ambition. It did not take long for the Monkey King to realize the insult. He, the self-proclaimed great sage, had been relegated to tending celestial horses, a position far beneath what he believed he deserved. Furious, Wukong abandoned his post, storming back to Flower Fruit Mountain. There he declared open rebellion against heaven itself, his eyes blazing with fury. This time, he would not merely defend his title, he would wage war on the celestial realm. The heavens responded with force. More powerful deities were summoned to subdue the Monkey King. They included some of the most fearsome gods, generals, and immortal beings known to heaven. The great marshal Tianpeng, the god of war, led an army of celestial warriors, their banners flapping in the wind as they marched toward Flower Fruit Mountain. But even they could not stop Sun Wukong. With his shape-shifting abilities, he evaded their strikes, slipping through their ranks like smoke. His magical staff, capable of growing to enormous lengths, swatted them aside as if they were nothing more than flies. The celestial forces, overwhelmed by Wukong's immortality and sheer cunning, found themselves in retreat once again. Each battle only seemed to bolster Wukong's sense of invincibility. He reveled in the chaos he caused, laughing at the gods and their futile attempts to contain him. His rebellion shook the very foundations of heaven, and the Jade Emperor, now deeply troubled, realized that no ordinary means could defeat the Monkey King. In desperation, the Jade Emperor turned to the most powerful force in existence, the Buddha himself. Far away in the Western paradise, Buddha resided in serene contemplation, untouched by the chaos of the world. When the Jade Emperor called upon him, Buddha listened calmly and agreed to intervene. The Buddha did not arrive with an army. Instead, he descended alone, floating gently down from the heavens, his serene presence radiating peace. Wukong, seeing the arrival of yet another figure seeking to challenge him, grinned with confidence. He had defeated every other opponent, and surely this calm and quiet figure would be no different. Buddha approached Wukong and spoke in a voice as steady as the earth itself. Sun Wukong, your power is great, but your pride blinds you. You claim to be the great sage, equal to heaven. But tell me, can you escape the reach of my hand? Wukong, ever brash, laughed. Escape your hand? I can leap across the heavens in a single bound. No prison can hold me. Buddha smiled softly and raised his hand. If you can leap beyond my palm, I will acknowledge your title and leave you be. Wukong, eager to prove himself, accepted the challenge. With a great shout, he summoned all his strength and launched himself into the sky, his body hurtling through the clouds. He flew for what seemed like hours, crossing the heavens, passing stars and galaxies, until finally he landed in a far-off place at the edge of the universe itself. There he found 5 towering pillars, and with a sense of triumph, he carved his name into one of them to mark his victory. Satisfied, Sun Wukong leaped back to where Buddha awaited him, confident that he had escaped the bounds of Buddha's hand. But when he landed and looked around, he was stunned to see Buddha still standing there, smiling gently. Wukong looked down in confusion and saw that he had never left Buddha's hand. The 5 pillars he had seen at the edge of the universe were, in fact, the fingers of Buddha's palm. In that moment, Sun Wukong realized he had been outwitted. Before he could react, Buddha turned his hand, and Wukong was flung to the ground, where a mountain rose up around him, trapping him beneath its immense weight. The mountain, conjured by Buddha's power, was unbreakable, sealing the Monkey King in place. For 500 years, Sun Wukong lay imprisoned under the mountain, unable to move. The earth was cold, and the weight of the mountain pressed down upon him like the judgment of the heavens. His once boisterous spirit quieted, and in the long years of solitude, he had ample time to reflect on his rebellion, his defiance, and the consequences of his unchecked pride. There, beneath the mountain, Wukong began to understand the folly of his actions. He had sought immortality, power, and recognition, but in doing so, he had lost his freedom and brought ruin upon himself. And yet, even as he lay in his stone prison, he knew that his story was not over. He could feel the slow turning of fate, the subtle shift in the winds of destiny. For Sun Wukong, the great sage, equal to heaven, the path to redemption had only just begun. Chapter 4. The Journey to the West. For 500 years, the world changed around the mountain that imprisoned Sun Wukong. The winds blew through the valleys, the seasons passed, but beneath the weight of stone, the Monkey King lay still. His mind, once filled with mischief and rebellion, grew quieter, tempered by the long years of isolation. Yet deep inside, his spirit remained unbroken, waiting for the moment when the mountain would crack and release him from his prison. That moment came when a figure approached the base of the mountain, a Buddhist monk named Tang Sanzang, also known as Xuanzang. His robes, simple and clean, fluttered lightly in the breeze, and his face carried the calm determination of a man on a sacred mission. He had been sent by the Bodhisattva Guanyin, a divine figure of mercy, to embark on a perilous journey westward to India, where he was to retrieve sacred scriptures that would bring enlightenment to China. But such a journey was fraught with dangers. Demons and spirits roamed the lands between, eager to devour a monk of such spiritual purity. Guanyin, knowing the risks, had chosen a protector for him, one who had once been feared and rebellious, but who now waited patiently for redemption. With a gesture from Guanyin's divine power, the mountain that had imprisoned Sun Wukong for centuries shifted. Stones rumbled and cracks formed in the earth. Slowly, the Monkey King emerged from beneath the rock, blinking against the light of the sun he had not seen for so long. His fur was dusty, his limbs stiff, but the fire in his golden eyes still burned. Tang Sanzang looked at the figure before him and spoke softly. "Sun Wukong, the Bodhisattva Guanyin has sent me to free you, but in exchange for your freedom, you must accompany me on my journey and protect me from the dangers that lie ahead." For a moment, the old arrogance flared in Wukong's chest. After all, he was the great sage, equal to heaven. Why should he serve a mere mortal? But the weight of his imprisonment had humbled him, and as he looked at the serene monk, he felt the stirrings of something new, a chance at redemption. Slowly, he bowed his head. "I accept," Wong said, his voice raspy from disuse. "I will protect you on your journey." But Guanyin knew better than to trust Sun Wukong's impulsive nature entirely. She placed a magical circlet around his head, a thin band of gold that appeared harmless enough. Yet, if Wukong disobeyed or strayed from the righteous path, Tang Sanzang could utter a sacred chant that would cause the circlet to tighten painfully, forcing Wukong to submit. The Monkey King, aware of this new constraint, grumbled at first, but ultimately accepted it, knowing that his path to redemption was through service, not defiance. Thus began the long and arduous journey westward. From the very start, the road was fraught with challenges. The lands they traveled through were wild, filled with mountains that scraped the sky and forests so dense that even sunlight struggled to penetrate the canopy. And lurking within those shadows were demons, creatures who saw in Tang Sanzang not just a mere monk, but a prize, a source of power if they could devour his pure spiritual essence. Sun Wukong, ever watchful, kept his promise. Armed with his trusty staff, the Ruyi Jingubang, he fought off wave after wave of demons, smashing through their illusions and breaking their bones with effortless precision. His 72 transformations proved invaluable, allowing him to outwit enemies by turning into insects, birds, or even inanimate objects. No prison could hold him, and no trap could ensnare him for long. Each time danger approached, Wukong was there, fierce and unyielding. But it wasn't just the external threats that tested Wukong. The real struggle was within himself. As the journey progressed, he found that his old habits of pride, impatience, and mischief often resurfaced. He was quick to anger, sometimes rash in his decisions. But each time he faltered, Tang Sanzang's calm voice reminded him of his greater purpose. The monk's unwavering faith in his mission and in Wukong's potential for goodness struck the Monkey King deeply. In one memorable encounter, Wukong came face to face with a powerful demon who sought to trap Tang Sanzang. The demon, knowing Wukong's history of rebellion, tempted him with promises of power, urging him to abandon his role as a protector and return to his old ways. For a brief moment, Wukong was tempted. He could see himself once again standing atop Flower Fruit Mountain, free from responsibility, his staff in hand, defying the heavens. But something had changed. As he glanced back at Tang Sanzang, standing calmly, unafraid in the face of danger, Wukong realized that he no longer wanted to be the reckless trickster of his past. There was something greater in protecting, in serving a cause larger than himself. With a roar of defiance, Wukong struck down the demon, his resolve stronger than ever. As they continued westward, the bond between Sun Wukong and Tang Sanzang deepened. The Monkey King, once proud and wild, grew more patient and thoughtful. He began to see the wisdom in Tang Sanzang's teachings and understood that true strength was not just about defeating enemies, but also about mastering oneself. Slowly but surely, Wukong evolved from a rogue to a protector, his once rebellious nature tempered by the trials he faced. Other companions joined them along the way: Jubaji, the greedy but good-hearted pig demon, and Sha Wujing, a quiet but loyal river ogre. Together, the group faced countless dangers, from treacherous mountains to fierce monsters, but with Wukong's cleverness and combat prowess, they prevailed. He was no longer the Monkey King who had waged war against heaven out of pride. He had become something more. He was now a guardian, a protector of the innocent, and a loyal companion to Tang Sanzang. As they neared the end of their journey and reached the sacred land of India, where the scriptures awaited, Sun Wukong looked back on the path they had traveled. The mischievous, rebellious monkey who had once sought to defy heaven was now a figure of wisdom and strength. His journey had transformed him in ways he could never have imagined when he first set out to seek immortality. In the end, Sun Wukong's redemption was not just about proving his strength or cunning. It was about understanding that true greatness lay in humility, in serving others, and in walking the path of righteousness. And as he stood by Tang Sanzang's side, watching the monk receive the sacred scriptures, Wukong knew that he had finally found the peace he had sought for so long.
you. you.